a Rudy Poo Candy Ass.
Today's Candy Ass is three-time NFL champion Harrison Butker from the Kansas City Chiefs, a place kicker, who, in case you don't know, made a speech at commencement at a Catholic college. And now it's touched off some very huge firestorms because of it. His reprehensible statements about the LGBTQ, about how he thinks that the women should be back in the 1950s, and his racist comments about DEI, diversity, equality, inclusion. Now, obviously, I'm going to give you just a few examples as to what he said, and quite honestly, they're pretty damn sickening. About DEI, diversity, equality, inclusion, saying that, quoting Harrison himself, the world around us says that we should keep our beliefs to ourselves whenever they go against the tyranny of diversity, equality, and inclusion. Now, there is so much I can say to that, but the best retort came from the Tennessean reporter, Andrea Williams. In her op-ed piece, Harrison Butker decries diversity, but he can thank a black quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, for his fame. Quoting directly from her op-ed piece, Harrison Butker does not have 3 Super Bowls without Patrick Mahomes. And without those 3 Super Bowl rings, he doesn't have the aforementioned praise or platform. His anger of the LGBTQ, saying, and I quote, not the deadly sin, sort of pride, that has an entire month dedicated to it. Obviously talking about Pride Month. Now, the NFL quickly decided to respond with this statement from Senior Vice President Jonathan Bean. Harrison Butker gave a speech in his personal capacity. His views are not those of the NFL as an organization. The NFL is steadfast in our commitment to inclusion, which only makes our league stronger. Unquote. The GLAAD, Gay and Lesbian Administration Against Diversity, also issued a statement calling it a clear miss, quoting them, and woefully out of step with Americans about pride, LGBTQ people, and women. Speaking of women, these comments from Butker are exactly what touched off this whole situation. Talking to a bunch of kids who are about to become college graduates, especially the women, Butker decided to go full hawk on the women. This is what he said, and I quote, I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, you see how he's singling it out, the women who had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and thinking about all the promotions and titles you're going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I venture to guess that the majority of you are excited about your marriage and the kids you are bringing into the world. He even brought his wife into this. His wife, Isabel, would be, quoting him, would be the first to say her life truly started when she began her vocation as a wife and a mother, unquote. Now, before I go on, I'm going to say this, and those comments about women, they're very offensive to me. Now, me personally, I was a child of divorce. My parents broke up when I was very, very young. My mother raised me. My father, of course, was still in my life, obviously, and I make it a pride to say I'm proud of both. And my mother worked. She had a career and everything else while she raised me and my brother. So it's capable of doing both. But you didn't say that women can do both, Butker. You said it's either one way or the other. For me, that to me is completely offensive. And as the statement about DEI, diversity, equality and inclusion. For me, that's offensive because let me remind you who you are, Buckner. You're a place kicker. And yes, you had an amazing career. And yes, you had two of the biggest field goals in your career at the Super Bowl. But let me remind you as to who got you to the Super Bowl. His name was Patrick Mahomes, a black man. And as much as it pains you, as much as it eats at your soul, he's a black man who got you to the Super Bowl, who got you that Super Bowl ring you'll be wearing in the next few weeks. So before you start downing on people because of their skin color, this is why you need to shut your mouth. And as for the deadly sin of pride, the only deadly sin of pride I see is in people like you. Now this is the beauty of this country. You have the freedom to believe whatever you want. What you don't have is the freedom to impose your beliefs on everyone else. Now those graduates you were talking to, they were looking forward to hearing from someone who has had success in his life. Not a gigantic religious tirade where your hatred is wrapped around in the blanket of your Catholic beliefs. I mean, the way you were talked about women, you're making it sound like that they should go back to the 50s where they barely had any rights, barely had any education, barely had any chance of success. What the hell happened to you? Were you raised like this? Or did someone give you an opportunity to be like this? Buckner, straight up. Your beliefs are your beliefs. Just don't try to force them on everyone else. But one of the sick parts about this is that so many Americans, at the very least so many conservative Americans, are agreeing with them, are celebrating this crap. With people like, of course, I gotta mention him, Nick Adams, praising him and condemning the NFL and condemning all of us because we want him to shut his mouth when it comes to this kind of hatred he's spewing. Trying to call out the NFL about its treatment of African American football players, in which he's labeled thugs, and some of them are. Some of them have committed criminal offenses. And not to mention continuing to spew a conspiracy that somehow the NFL is against Christian players. Of course, throwing out Tim Tebow's name again. And I'm not going to go into detail about Tebow. I've already done enough of that in one of my previous videos. But you're celebrating a man who said a woman's place is in the home raising children, not having a career and not going through college and not attaining the things that they worked for. That's pretty damn sick in my view. These people want us to go back to the 50s. I can only guess what they want black people to do back in the 1950s. Well, actually, it's not too far away from understanding what they want African Americans to be like back in the 50s. Jim Crow and everything else that came with it. Anyhow, moving forward, this man just showed what kind of a person he is. Instead of showing what kind of a good American he is, a good person, a college-educated person who has success, all he has shown is that he is a bigot, a racist, a chauvinist, a pig, and more importantly, he is nothing more than
a Rudy Poo Candy ass.
CTP, know the truth. God bless. Peace to the left, justice to the right.